I came all dressed for the occasion, brought grandma's apron, got one of my cookbooks right out of my own kitchen because our guest today is Molly Yeh. Molly and her husband Nick farm at East Grand Forks, Minnesota, but also, she does a few other things, like a network show on the Food Network and has a restaurant. So she's kind of busy. And oh, she raises a few chickens. I also like the fact that she named them all the same names, so that makes it easy to keep track. But Molly, welcome to joining us today. We are so glad you're here. How are you?
I'm great. I'm loving that apron. That's incredible.
Thank you. Grandma would be so proud. Well, she came with it came with all the church lady cookbooks. So if you ever need any additional thoughts and recipes, I got them.
I might take you up on that. I love church cookbooks. They're the best.
All right. So you and Dean have a lot in common. You came from the Chicago area. How's that transition been for you? He's still working on his.
Yeah.
Well, Chicago definitely trained me for winters, so that wasn't that big of a shock. And to be honest, I always say I felt colder in Chicago because in Chicago you're expected to walk places. And here, there's just no question that you're gonna be driving and
Yeah.
you're gonna be leaving your car running in the parking lot of the grocery store and it's gonna stay warm for you. In Chicago, it was like not cold enough to really do that. So, in effect, yeah, it's counterintuitive, but we're more equipped for the winter here. So I feel warmer in Grand Forks.
Right. And Molly, from going and we'll call the suburbs of Chicago city life because you're close enough to the city. What kind of transition was it difficult? I mean, I know you went. I believe you went to college out in was it New York?
Yeah.
Okay, so was it tough going from the city life basically to living on the farm, which you've never done before? I mean, what kind of a transition was that?
Frankly, full disclosure, I missed the pizza and the bagels, but other than that, I was ready for this way of life. I was ready for the pace. I have always loved the idea of a smaller town and a tight-knit community and a smaller community. And I do love the winter. I love working inside and looking at the snow outside. And I was ready for um, ready to focus on writing and doing the blog and cooking and not have a lot of the distractions of the city. And then once I figured out how to make homemade bagels and got a pizza oven, I was like, all right, I don't really need to go to the city for anything anymore. But no, really, I was ready for it. So I will say, like, I don't know that that would necessarily reflect like everybody moving here, but for me personally, I was ready for this transition. I had awesome support from, my in-laws and my husband and my family and everything. So that definitely helped to move here and not be totally alone. But no, I love it. We're coming up on 10 years that I've been here. So
Wow.
uh, most of my adult life.
Oh, that's super cool. So, what's the story behind how you and Nick met? And then how did that turn into your TV show, your series of Girl Meets Farm? What's that story and how did it all become what it is today?
So we met in college. We were both music students, and we weren't really close friends in college. He was not a partier. He was a very quiet, he kept to himself, very hard worker, and I was in many ways the opposite of that. So we didn't actually start dating until after we graduated, and we were still living in the city and had a really good mutual friend that both of us were hanging out with for a while. So honestly, once we actually had the time to get to know each other, we realized that, oh yeah, we should definitely get married. We're definitely made for each other. And part of that connection was realizing that we are both such homebodies and we both really we both have just like so many of the same values and so many of the same goals in our life and such. And so after living in New York for about a year after we started dating, we kind of realized like, gosh, I don't think New York City is the place where we want to be spending a lot of money on rent if we're just going to be staying in on a Friday night, watching Netflix and ordering Domino's pizza delivery. So we started to think about where we could move. And like, with my family being in the Midwest, his family being in the Midwest, we thought we should really seriously consider going closer to our families. And we, I think it was like April of 2013 that we took a trip outside of the city, hiking in New Jersey and seeing the lush greenery and being out in the fresh air and everything. We kind of looked at each other and we thought like, wow, we should have this all the time. I think we're done with the city. We're ready to be closer to our families, all of that. And he said, my family has this farm. And I thought, that sounds cool. That sounds lovely. I would love to visit. So I visited in that July, took one look around and thought, yeah, this place is great. Let's move here. And so about a month later, we packed up his mom's minivan with all of our belongings from New York, and we drove here and really haven't looked back. And when I got here, I thought, okay, well, Nick will introduce me to all of his friends that he has surely kept in touch with since high school, and I'll have friends and I'll have a community and I'll have all of that, and it's going to be so great. Turns out he didn't have that many friends, so I had a lot of time to myself. And we also moved back like right before harvest. So when we moved here, he was basically like the so yeah, between that and then like the social life thing really not being what it was in New York, I had a lot of time on my hands. So I just was excited to do this. I just threw myself into my blog. I got a job at the town bakery as well, Dakota Harvest, and that was wonderful. It was overnight shift, and so I did that. I wrote my blog and just learned and learned by blogging for 7 days a week. I saw that farmer's work ethic, and I was inspired by it and how hard Nick worked on the farm. And so I worked just as many, if not more, hours on the blog. And then a few months after that, I was contacted by a literary agent who floated this idea of like, hey, would you ever think about writing a cookbook? And at first I was like, oh man, I just moved here. I really don't think that I know enough to write a cookbook. And so he said, oh, okay, like let me be in touch when you feel like you're ready. And so a little while later, I was just, the more I thought about that idea, I got more and more excited about it. So I embarked on that journey to write Molly on the Range. It took about a year to write it, and then another year to go through the editing and the photography and the printing process and all of that. And so that came out in 2016, I think. And then it was when what's up?
Well, I was just going to say, Molly, hold on to that thought. We hit the bottom of the hour. We're going to keep talking. I've got your cookbook right here, Molly on the Range. You'd be horrified to know how I put my tater tots on my tater tot hot dish versus yours, but we're going to talk about that when we come back.
And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for rejoining us. 1:36 on this afternoon. I'm meteorologist Justin Storm with Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, Ag Director Bridget Riedel, and our very special guest today, Molly Yeh from Girl Meets Farm and the Food Network. And Molly, before we went to break there, you were kind of telling us about the story of how you met Nick. You were just getting into the part of how you had written your first cookbook after learning how to cook and all the hard work and many hours that you put into it. And I think you were just getting to the part on how Girl Meets Farm start to took off. But I was wondering, I just recently watched this movie with my wife, and I've cooked for about 10 years. She is a chef. She has her degree. And we were watching Julie and Julia. Have you seen that movie of Julia Child when she wrote her cookbook?
So good. Of course.
I was wondering, in your experience writing your first cookbook, and maybe several after. Is that story pretty accurate? Is that kind of how it went? All the hard work that goes into it?
Oh my gosh, I just remember days writing Molly on the Range, nights, I should say, staying up until 3 a.m., chugging the strongest cold brew I could get my hands on, and like blasting music and just trying to meet my deadline and writing this thing. It is a lot. And like Molly on the Range, it was my first cookbook. And after I submitted it and after I wrote it, I thought, okay, now I have learned how to write a cookbook, and now I feel like I should begin to write this cookbook because you're not only writing the thing, you're also learning how to write the thing. And so, in cookbooks since then, I've written 2 cookbooks since then. They have been much smoother. They've brought a much more healthy balance of work and life. Yeah, so home is where the eggs are was not as uh, aggressive in my approach to writing it. I had a much better timeline. And yeah, after writing Molly on the Range, I had to just like take a few years off of even thinking about writing another cookbook because I was so burnt out. But after that, I felt
Right.
a lot more in control.
That's really great. So you just had your cookbook finished. Carry on with that story that you were telling us about how you met Nick. You got to the farm up in East Grand Forks, Minnesota. You wrote your first cookbook. What comes after that? When did Girl Meets Farm become an idea? And how did that continue
Yeah.
on with the Food Network?
Yeah, so when I went to New York for the launch of Molly on the Range, and when I was there, my agent said, "Oh, some people at Food Network would like to meet with you." And I was really excited because the Food Network offices used to be over this magical wonderland called Chelsea Market, which is just a food lover's dream. It's basically a mall completely devoted to food. And this new hummus place had just opened up there. And so I thought, awesome, we're going to go to the Food Network offices, but I'm really excited to eat hummus afterwards. So so we went to the offices, and I met with a couple of the executives there, and they were really, really nice. And we didn't talk about any specific ideas. We just got to know each other, and they were lovely, and it was a really positive meeting. And so after that, a few months after that, they said, "Oh, we're going to send a production crew out to the farm, and they're going to film you cooking." Simple as that, no pressure, just cook some stuff, and said, "Okay, I'm gonna make a hot dish and I'm gonna make my mother-in-law's cookie salad." So I did that, and they made what's called a sizzle, which is sort of like a trailer for a show that doesn't exist yet. And so they made this sizzle and they showed it to Food Network, and Food Network said, "Okay, like let's make a pilot." So a few months later, the same production company came back and we filmed the first episode of, at that point, the show didn't have a name, and it was really fun. It was great working with a crew. I loved having them all in our house and got to, put on hair and makeup and get all done up for it. And and that was really fun. And so after that week of filming ended, I just thought, well, that was fun. And if I hear from them again, like, great. That would be really cool to keep on doing that. And so a few months after that, they said, I got another phone call and they said, "Oh, we'd like to film 6 episodes of this new show, and it's going to be called Girl Meets Farm." And uh, growing up in the 90s, I immediately thought of Boy Meets World, one of my old favorite TV shows. And I was like, cool, great. And so they came back a few months later, and we filmed the six episodes is technically half of a season. So we did half of a season.
Mhm.
And then I just fell in love with the process. I fell in love with the crew. I felt like performing in the kitchen and performing in front of a camera really brought me back to performing music and music school, and
Mhm.
and so from the get-go, there was a comfort in that. Um, And then the few months after that were really difficult to wait because that was when I was waiting to see if it would get picked up for a full season. And I remember being really happy when I got that phone call. And so that was back in 2017 or 2018, I think. And then since
Hmm.
then, we've been filming on a continuous basis. So we'll do between 2 and 3 seasons a year. And we're about to start filming again in a couple of weeks. We'll be doing our 13th season.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
there's so much that goes on for you, Molly. I mean, you've been on the farm at East Grand Forks, Minnesota now for like 10 years. Is there anything that's still surprising to you as when you get to the farm? Are you still a harvest widow? Are things better? Do you get to drive equipment now? Does somebody let you in a tractor?
Oh, no one will let me in a tractor. No way. I'm good. I'm good with that. I mean, I love making harvest lunch. I love making harvest baked goods every year for sugar beet harvest. I set up a little pop-up bakery in the shop and I put baked goods out every single day for our truck drivers and for our harvest drivers. And that's so much fun. I definitely think that knowing what to expect now from harvest, it has me enjoy it a lot more. At first, I was jarred. At first, it was like very challenging, and then after Bernie was born, and and working, and then also being a parent, and then also never knowing when Nick was going to be coming in, like yes, that's very challenging. But as the years go on, I have found so many things to really love about that season, and
Hmm.
I've also learned to find TV shows that he hates watching so that I can have a TV show to watch during harvest. Like that's my time to catch up on The Bachelor and all of the trashy shows on Netflix that are all about, going on blind dates or whatever.
Well,
So
honestly, Molly,
it was an adjustment
when
for
you
sure.
when you said you set up a pop-up bakery in the shop during harvest for all your drivers and operators, I heard a stampede to the phone for people applying for that job so that they can come out during beet harvest this year. So you're going to get a lot of new people who
Nick will
have an
be very
interest.
excited.
He will. And you mentioned Bernie, not only the name of your daughter, but your restaurant. How's that balance going now with all the things that you do and being a restaurateur on top of it?
It is like having another newborn. It's a lot. It's challenging. It's everything that people say about having a restaurant. It's really, really hard. But at the end of the day, it is so rewarding, and I get to work with an amazing crew of people at Bernie's. I love seeing them every day. I love seeing the customers. We celebrate local ingredients, local
Hmm.
farms, local cuisine, and because it just comes from such a passionate place. I am so passionate about this region and about food of this region, about all of the amazing crops and about all of the amazing recipes that many of them rooted in those church cookbooks. So it has, yes, it's been challenging. Yes, it's caused me to lose tons of sleep, but just like a newborn, I love it. And it is so gosh darn rewarding.
Yeah, I'm up in Grand Forks, and I've been over to your restaurant not too long ago, and it's just a beautiful place.
Thank
The
you.
food looks great. It smells good in there. I actually know a handful or a couple of people that are employed by you guys now, as well as your sous chef. He used to be my old sous chef back in the day up here. He's a great, great guy. But I've been trying to tell
That's
Dean and
awesome.
Bridget we got to head up so we can grab food up there. We're gonna
We
make a
are
little
making
day out of it
no,
or
we're
something.
definitely making a road trip up when the weather warms up. No
Well,
doubt about it.
I I
Come
got
on
to
up.
eat there with Mr. and Mrs. Rob Sharkey, Shark Farmer, and his wife, and I can tell you right
Oh,
now,
cool.
worth our time. Worth our time, you guys.
Good.
Thank you. So you experienced dinner because we just started dinner only about a month or so ago, and I know that Rob and Emily went there for dinner. So
Yeah,
it's
Mhm.
it's a new
it was
thing
pretty
when you
cool.
guys come up, come try dinner, come experience dinner, but also we do have breakfast and lunch as well. So come on up for all three meals. stick around for drinks. We still got the horseshoe bar. Bring home some baked goods or a frozen hot dish.
We'll make a day out of it. That sounds good.
That'd be great. Hey, Molly, we had a listener question here. They were wondering, how do you find a balance between your shows, your personal life, the business? Are there moments that get hectic, and how do you manage and balance all of that?
I am an obsessive planner. I have my phone glued to my hand with my iCal, and I'm really good at making lists. I'm also very good at delegating. We have an amazing, I mean, it takes a village, and we have an amazing one. So I can't take all the credit. I plan my planning. So every Friday I have a planning session with myself to meticulously plan the following week. And I just go by, I live and die by my to-do lists, and I just check things off throughout the week. And then if something doesn't get done, you know, I'm good at being chill about it usually, or I just take it all out on Nick. So I have a very understanding husband. That's the other secret to that.
Now, Molly, what do you find is the most challenging of the things you do? Would it be running the restaurant? Would it be your series on the Food Network? What is the most challenging for you?
Hands down, it's the restaurant, and it's because this is the first time that I've ever done anything like this. I've worked in restaurants before, but I've never owned a restaurant, and I've never had to look at spreadsheets of labor costs and food costs and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, Nick, with his farming background and his brain for numbers, he's really good at that stuff. So I'm really nervous about what's going to happen when spring planting starts.
Oh.
But everything is new with the restaurant. The opening just brought so many great things, but also so many challenges. There are so many things to think about. But now, though, I will say, even after opening breakfast and lunch at Bernie's, and now we just opened dinner a month ago, opening dinner felt like a second restaurant opening, and it felt so much more in control. It went so much smoother than it, at least in my brain. I mean, again, we have such an amazing village there. Jake, our chef, is just incredible. Jenna, our general manager, and they shepherded us into this new era of Bernie's with dinner. So it is, I am getting more optimistic, and I am understanding it better, but gosh, it is a learning curve.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, you have a great and beautiful location where you're at over there in East Grand Forks, right next to the Greenway, the bridge, the parks. It's beautiful right over there.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to be in that space and why I wanted to open a space, was because when we heard that it was going to be available, we walked in and, everybody has a Whitey's story. Everybody has a Whitey's connection here. It was one of the first restaurants that I went to that summer that I moved here. My sister-in-law had her wedding party there, and it was just such a special place, and we wanted to honor that. So we kept the horseshoe bar. We have menu items that pay homage to Whitey's, and we just love having that history in the space.
Oh, that's
Well,
great.
and in your restaurant, Molly, you've also got, so like you said, local foods, because I saw things from Cows and Co. out in Carrington, right there, their gelato. You really have done an excellent job of highlighting all the regional foods, not just the fact that it's hot dish and cookie salad, but things that are from makers right here. And I think that's a big hats off to you as well.
Yeah, Cows and Co. is incredible. We have Doubting Thomas Farms grains. We have local pasta, Three Farm Daughters. We have amazing local potatoes. We're in talks with my sister-in-law just became the head of Farmer in the Dell in outside of Fargo, and so we're talking with her about getting some produce over the summer. And this is such a beautiful region with just like such rich farmland and such delicious produce, and we want to showcase it. And of course, local sugar, local wheat, but the things that Nick grows, It's so
You
great.
couldn't be a better lead-in. It could not be a better lead-in, Molly. Just as of yesterday, I booked 3 farmers' daughters to be one of our guests to talk about their pasta. And your
So
sister-in-law
good.
is
It's
going
so
to be on
delicious.
with us by the end of the month as well. So we've got lots of guests, and
No
apparently
way.
we're just
Oh,
running
she's
through
the
the
best.
Hagen family. Just bring it. What are your in-laws up to? Maybe I should pick them next. So it's gonna work out great.
Father-in-law's still farming.
Right. Well,
Perfect.
Dean, you got one last thing in there
I've
you
got,
want to sneak in?
one last question, Molly. We've got an emailer. Well, actually, no, it wasn't an emailer. It was me. So, growing up outside of Chicago,
Sly.
a Cubs fan or Sox fan?
Oh no. Wait, where in Chicago are you from?
I'm not telling you.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I'm from the north suburbs.
Right.
Somehow my dad was a Sox fan, so I inherited
no.
being a Sox fan. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh no, I chose the wrong
Oh
one.
no.
No. You don't
So
want to be the
sorry.
same fan as
Yeah.
It's okay. Totally okay.
No, that's okay. I actually grew up on the south side, but my dad was a Cubs fan. It was total opposite of you. But my dad was a
okay.
Cubs fan, so we grew up liking the Cubs. So it's
I
a
do
good
love
rivalry.
Wrigley Field.
Yeah, it's you know what? We go back a couple times a year. We should get a road trip. Me, you, Nick, Justin, Bridget. We can make it. We can make a little series out of that. The farm goes to the city.
That's true.
the farm and the
Absolutely true.
loons
But
go
Dean-
to the
Yeah,
city.
Yeah, farm.
But I know we're not letting Dean drive.
Oh.
I've seen it. We're
Yeah.
good. Okay, moving on.
Right. Molly, we got about 40 seconds left. Where can people go to get information or more information about your TV show, your cookbooks? Where's the restaurant located at again? All that good stuff.
Yeah. So I personally am active on Instagram. You can follow me. My Instagram name is Molly A. For Bernie's, you can go to Instagram or Facebook, Bernie's EGF, or you can go to bernie'seastgrandforks.com. And that about covers it. I keep things minimal. Instagram, a little bit of Facebook, website. Website is mynameisye.com.
Well, that's great. Well, we want to thank you for taking time out of your day to join us here on WAG, and we'll see you in the near future up there at Bernie's when we get these guys up there.
Thank you so much.